Hi, we're talking with Taylor Goldsmith about songwriting, one of the unique course offerings here at the Sanibel Island Writers Conference. Good to see you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for coming up. All right. So I'm curious about, what do you do as a songwriter and a musician and a performer and everything? What happens when you get around to talking with people about what you do and they aspire to want to do the same thing?
Well, this is actually the first writers' conference I've ever been a part of as a songwriter, and then I realized that Sanibel Island doing songwriting as a part of it is not that common. Therefore there's not a lot of people I can really call and be like, how do I kind of approach this thing? So I kind of just went in and for me, because I understand it better than any other materials, I just went over my own stuff, rather than I hate to be the guy that teaches out of his own textbook kind of thing, but I feel like my music is the only music that I was there for the process of being written, so I feel like I could really explore each aspect of each section, even if the folks there aren't really particularly into my kind of music or whatever. I feel like it would still give insight into the aspects that I do understand, which.
What do you start out with? I mean, do you start out with notes in your head, or you start out with lyrics, or? I mean,
a lot of it for me is it's. I feel like music is one of those kinds of is an art form that really relies on the inspired moment, whereas a lot of other kinds of writing, I feel like you can kind of work structural or technical issues while you're waiting for the next idea as to where your story's going to go or whatever. Whereas I feel like with music, you're not really getting. There's so few words, and these songs are so short that each there are definitely structural, technical kinks to work out, but I feel like there's not much. So you really have to be in kind of an inspired place to be able to work. And so a lot of getting started consists of just kind of being available to it and sitting at the piano or sitting at the guitar and coming up with some sort of idea that I can work from. I mean, it's always, when it comes to the musical idea, I don't want to commit too much to anything, because I don't want that to limit me in terms of what words I can use. So I really try to keep that broad until and then once the lyrics and the phrasing and the the inflection of lines and all that presents itself, then I start to commit a little firmer to chords and tempo and so it's a little bit at the same time, but I've never written words by themselves before music, but I've also never really gotten too far along with music without words there.
So what kind of instrument do you use? I mean, do you sort of trick yourself? I mean, you play little, musical notes and things and collections and sequences, and then words come to you, or how does that happen?
Well, I use, a guitar and a piano kind of thing?
Well, yeah. What instrument do you really, riff on?
Well, probably mostly guitar, but I also play piano and I also write on piano, and I find that using different instruments will refresh certain things that might have otherwise seemed a little bit tired or a little bit just things that you feel like you've already explored, the same exact chords, like a C to F, that might be something that a songwriter is very familiar with, probably used quite a bit. But then all of a sudden, if you just lower that a whole step and you're going from B to E flat, it's still a 1 chord to a 4 chord in both examples. But just by being in B flat, for me at least, I'm not in B flat very often. So it's all of a sudden I can do these moves and these changes that I've done before, but all of a sudden I'm feeling inspired by them because just simply by changing keys or just going from the guitar to the piano and playing these same chords, but on piano, and then feeling a lot newer to me.
It seems to me to be able to get across to a group of people. If you're trying to get this across to me, for instance, I'm starting to feel well, I got to go to an instrument, or I got to see it, or I got to try it, or I got to hear it to really, sort of translate what you're saying.
Right.
So is that how you?
Well, I have a guitar with me when I
show people, what it is you're talking about.
Yeah, I have a guitar, so I can when I talk about the idea of like suspending someone's impression of a song, where like you kind of elevate them and even and you make it through the music, you make it sound like it's not resolved, that like you need to somehow conclude this thought. And like, you know, that can be through a certain chord choice, and like, and I'll illustrate that on a guitar. I mean, like, you know, when you hear this guitar, it's kind of like, it feels like a big question mark, like it's hanging everybody up, and everybody wants to come down, and then that's what this chord is for, you know, and then I'll play the next chord.
Who do you use as your inspirational examples? I mean, if you're going to say, you know, like so and so does it, or like,
well, it depends on like what I'm trying to show, but like if I really want to show the powers of like that kind of thing, like suspension and resolution and theory, and like and employing like, you know, really complex theory ideas, I will talk about Paul Simon, songs like "So Crazy After All These Years," or Joni Mitchell has a lot of that. For me, I mean, like, you know, more like folk-based or traditional songwriting is kind of like what I do, so I don't really, even though like there's obviously classical examples and jazz examples of songs and works that are much more like musically involved in a Paul Simon song. Right. In my world, like if you're writing a 3-minute pop / rock and roll / folk song, Paul Simon's a really great example. But then when I want to talk about structures and all the different ways you can structure a song, where you want to put that title, how you want the chorus to flow, like where certain lyrics keep popping up. I'll talk about like Bob Dylan. Like he seems to be, like he seems to have an example of like every type of structure anyone's ever done, and it's pretty actually astounding when you really like sit down and pay attention to that. Even though, you know, I'm not saying that, oh, he's better than anybody else or anything like that, but a lot of people find certain formulas and stick to them, whereas Bob Dylan, you always find yourself being like, wow, that's unlike anything he's ever done, and it's a very clear, concise structure.
So do you see yourself progressing in any kind of direction with your music? I mean, you talked about Paul Simon. He seems to have done sort of the same thing his whole career, but different themes and different subjects, picking them out, and Dylan changing so that people actually protest when he goes from you know, one structure to another. And you've already gone through a lot of changes. Did you do the rock band thing for a while?
Yeah, well, I'm still doing that.
Right?
I'm in a band. I don't make solo records. You know, I write like, you know, maybe more traditional songs and folk songs, but I'm in a band, and that's how all the songs come out. But yeah, I mean, I do what comes natural, as I'm sure, you know, Paul Simon and Bob Dylan both do and did. Yeah, I mean, if it leads me to any like new forms and new sounds, then I'm really excited to follow that through. And if it really kind of keeps me, you know, as some sort of representative of like one specific sounding genre, then you know, that sounds pretty cool too. Because a lot of my favorite artists, like Bruce Springsteen or Tom Petty, like they stay very true to their initial sound.
Right.
And that's not really, I have no problem with that either. So
I got to ask you this one last question. Why did you come to Sanibel to do this? Have you got a curiosity about just trying it?
Yeah, I mean, I was invited, and I was really honored, because I'm working at it, I'm thinking about it all day, and even when I sat down to put together notes to go over with the folks coming to the workshop, like, you know, I have no experience as a teacher, and I'm learning to be more like engaging in that sort of thing, but in terms of like my willingness to talk about it and like just kind of go on and on about like all the different things you can consider, like it's so fun to me, and it's all I spend my time doing anyway, so I figure it'd be a really wonderful opportunity, and something, and you know, like anything you've never gotten to experience, it's just exciting.
Yeah, it really puts you on the line.
Yeah.
Taylor, nice talking with you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.